All right. Good morning, Cadet
Yes.
Prosperity. It is
Good
Matt
morning.
here with you. Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 12th, and uh, we're live on Zoom, and we'll post it on Facebook later today. Today, we're going to be going over the organizational model. So, we've talked about in the Earn a Million stage, we've talked about the economic model, we've talked about the lead gen model, we've talked about the budget model, and now we're going to move into the organizational model. Um, so, really, the concept behind the organizational model is you're going to get to a point in your business where you'll need leverage. And essentially, the quote that I think sums up a lot of this chapter on page 158. Gary writes that if you don't have a maid, you are one. If you don't have a lawn man, then you're the lawn man. So essentially, in business, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. So if you don't have somebody else doing, helping you with your contracts or doing stuff on dot loop in those places, you're the person doing it. Um,
Mhm.
and you reach really a limit of being able to do that before you need leverage and support to get to that next level, that next ceiling of achievement.
Yeah. So when you say that, it's so funny because I've been a student of this book for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and since early on, I have had that language of if you don't have a maid, you are one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was until I had to reread this section as to where I remembered that that language came from this
Yep.
book, which is a real testament as to what you read, what you put in, ultimately comes out. Most of us can resonate with the "because I told you so."
Yep.
Who is that? Who is that? Who is that famous person? Your mom, right? So um, internalizing some of these ideas is mastering, going back to the six personal perspectives, is
Yep.
rereading this and going through this, because I would bet you that some of you right now are maybe not in a position to hire an assistant, put a buyer's agent in place. And so when you're reading this, it may sound different to you. Maybe to you, organizational leverage is exactly what Matt just said: hiring somebody to cut the lawn, or hiring somebody to do the laundry,
Yep.
clean the house twice a month, deep cleanse. And so that could be what, when you're reading this the first time, and I bet you when I read this the first time, I was 26 years old. I was living in my parents' house, and I mean, the only challenge was the dog that was barking, right? So I had no challenges. And I would imagine that when I read this, I maybe found that funny and didn't even know what that meant.
Yep.
Then fast forward to a couple years later, when I had my own house, maybe I understood what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our business, as we get deeper into these chapters, especially in the latter part of the book, there's some concepts there that are definitely for future business for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of us.
Yep.
Now, Matt and I have experienced growing teams on a very large level.
Yep.
In that, Matt, what was the largest agent count that you had at your at your
Morton.
last office?
350.
Okay, so ultimately you had 350 agents on your team.
Yep.
You were part of the executive leadership team of a market center that had 350 agents. Therefore, you're responsible for all those buyer agents and seller agents and their admins and
Yep.
your admins, and ultimately you reported up to a TL as well. And so it was a whole big organization.
Yep.
We're asking you to look at your business, whether you're able to put other people into your business right now, and not able to, but have you earned the right in your business? Like, did your business get to a level where, if Matt and I were to look at it, if the book and the models say, yep, this person is losing business because they have so many leads they can't handle all of
Yep.
them, and
Yep.
they're picking and choosing?
Yep.
Or is it this person is feeling the struggle because they're having some challenge with time management, and that is a choice that they make, and if I could help them with this, they'll find 2 hours a day to do the other stuff, which we get boggled down in the 80%, guys.
Yep.
And we kind of push off the 20, and then we wonder why the business is not growing. We have to stay in our 20% zone, which is in the lead generation,
Yep.
and then make those time chunks
Yep.
for all the other stuff that still has to get done. And one other thing before we move on is, if you are a single agent and you are not, maybe I would say 15 to 25 transactions in New Jersey is when you start thinking, per year, is when you start thinking that I may need an assistant, things could maybe look a little nicer, customer service could be better, I could maybe service more leads. If you aren't there yet, I would say, let's talk about what your schedule looks like so we could help you organize better. If you're at that point, then sure, you're looking at what kind of leverage could I bring into my business. So we're going to discuss the way you bring people into your business. And yet I want to also say that your technology tools are leverage for you right now. And so if you're ready to skip over and say, well, I think I need an assistant. Well, I think I need, okay, I'm going to tell you, go into your database and let your database do some heavy lifting for you in the consistent communication, right? Wouldn't you agree, Matt?
I definitely agree with that. And I think, when we're looking at this chapter in particular, as we mentioned before, the book is divided where right now we're going through the 4 models, yet then we're going to move into how the millionaire real estate agent, like how to earn $1 million. So we'll get into the MREA economic model, lead gen model, budget model, and org model. Right now, when we're looking at the organizational model, we're really just looking at hiring your admin. The first person that you're hiring is your administrative assistant. And as it says in the book, the second thing you need to focus on is hiring talent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really where we launched into the first part of this chapter where it says, when doing all that you can do, you hire administrative help. And really the administrative help, and I've been on this side of it too. I worked with the Gordon Crawford team for in Morristown, one of the first years that I was in real estate.
Got a pretty big, he's got a big business.
He has a huge business. He does about $45 million, $45 million a year. Has a team of about 8 or 9 agents, and we'll get into buyer's agents, listing agents when we get to the MREA section of the organizational model. But the big thing about hiring that administrative help is really helping you with the systems, implementing the systems and the models into your business. So really understanding, because we've talked about this before, most top agents are usually not systems oriented. They're usually not the paperwork people. So ultimately, hiring the first administrative assistant is really geared towards helping you take that off of your plate. One of the things that they do talk about on page 160 is the pros and cons versus hiring a licensed assistant versus an unlicensed assistant. And they talk about the pros being an assistant allows you really to focus on just the lead generation aspect, while a licensed assistant has the know-how to be able to handle the day-to-day tasks. A licensed assistant also has made the career decision that they want to be in real estate. So they've already committed to really liking the real estate field. They understand the commission business, and assistants usually trained in the business. However, the one caveat I will say to that, Mary Beth, he has it in the pro box. I've also seen a lot of people who have been licensed and who've been in the business for 5-10 years who've actually collected or picked up some bad habits. And sometimes you have to train them out of those habits. So even though it's listed as a pro in the book, I have seen it in my experience that it can actually be a con. Whereas somebody who's unlicensed and fresh and new, you can actually train them and teach them the right way to do it, and they don't have those bad habits ingrained already.
That's right. So I have, it's a mixed emotion on licensed or unlicensed, just depending on what the vision of your business is.
Yeah.
These models are in place to help you make decisions, and you still have to whiteboard out your idea of how you'd like your business to grow, what that looks like. As far as whether you'll have a licensed or unlicensed assistant, that also may have to do with what type of business you deal with. If you are dealing with, let's say, REO business, real estate owned, which is foreclosure properties, you're dealing with on the seller side. Let's say you were able to get an REO account from a bank and you were to be listing foreclosure properties. Those sellers, they don't need anybody talking to them. They need somebody who's very systems oriented, process oriented, fills out their forms, and it's all done administratively. So you wouldn't necessarily need someone who's licensed. It would almost be better if you had somebody who had more of secretarial skills and administrative office skills, organizational skills, and who cares if they can talk to someone because they're not going to need to do that. Yeah. Transactionally mindset, right? Yeah. And then you have the other part of the business that if your business is warm and fuzzies and your business is all referral based and I take, friends and cousins and database oriented, if that's where your business is coming from, then it might not be bad to have a licensed assistant who can talk to the clients about pricing or the market when you're not available as you grow your business, so that it is another voice that legally can speak to the client. In the cons box, the last one I think is the most important, and you don't figure that out unless you go through the proper hiring process. And the proper hiring process is called career visioning. And it's not an hour interview, and it's not I need an assistant, let me throw a post out there and look at their pictures online and look at a resume and just choose them. That's not the process. A bad assistant, a bad hire, it can cost multiple times the investment that you're making in just the pay.
Well, let's look at that, Mary Beth, because I want you to go into that. What page 163 talks about the cost of a bad hire versus the opportunity of a great hire.
But wait 1 second before I hit on that note is that person who had the desire to go get a real estate license and sell real estate, who now has maybe settled for a assistant position doing administrative work, you really have to check what the motivation and what the attachment to them being the real estate agent is. Because if they really, really want to go and show houses and be successful in that element, and they look at taking the job of your assistant as their stepping stone, that may work for you. Just understand that it's a short-lived, hey, maybe Matt, you can get me up and running. You can help create the operations while you're here. We know it's going to be 1 year, and our ultimate goal is to get you out on the field and replace you. Yep. If the set expectations are there, that's fine. Yep. If I am only looking for somebody that is going to be a task-driven administrative that will hold me accountable, and I don't want them to have the desire to get up from that seat and go out in the field, because that's what I do best. I need somebody to be the opposite of me and stay in-house. Yep. And that's what I'm looking for, and it might not be a licensed assistant. So yep. I just want to advise you to lean on us again if you are in the hiring process, or if you're thinking about this, because we do have the tools to help you make the right choice.
I mean, in Morristown, I helped coach a lot of teams through the career visioning process. And I even did some of the hiring, for some of the top teams. I helped really go through the process from, the initial interview, the thought process interview. And basically, for those of you who aren't familiar with the career visioning process, it's really a seven-step. Yeah, it's really a 7-step process from the time that you put out like an Indeed posting or you put out an ad somewhere. It really takes you through the process of truly getting to know someone. I think one of the mistakes that people make is, there's a couple mistakes. I think one mistake is they go on one interview with someone, they love them, they might do one more, but they're like, you know what, I'm sold and I'm going to hire them, but they haven't really gone deep enough to know, how do they react in a group setting, because there's the group interview, which is part of the career visioning process. You have,
or how about they checked one reference?
I was just going to say the reference. They're not going, they're not asking the references that they gave for 3 other references. They're not going deep with the references. They're not doing what's called the motivational interview. So really identifying, why does this person want this role? Where do they see themselves in the future? Why have they left past jobs? And that really gets into the life story part of the interview. Yeah. So the motivational interview is really about understanding where they see themselves and what's important to them. And then getting into the life story, which is really going about, okay, you graduated college, you can go as far back as you want. And it's like, well, you took this job. Okay, why did you leave that job? What were the
highs and lows did you have there? What did you earn? How did that make you feel?
Exactly.
Like Matt, what you're talking about is we take those things for granted, that those conversations really give us an insight on who is the person that we're getting into business. And we also take for granted that It's not just, oh, we're hiring somebody, we can fire them. You're bringing it's somebody's livelihood, somebody's life. They're making, income decisions.
Yeah.
So I don't take that lightly when people want to hire, fire, bring on a buyer's agent. I will share with you also, if you don't have an assistant, you really can't hire a buyer's agent. You don't have the value to bring to a buyer's agent for you to have a win-win relationship with a buyer's agent. And I can honestly say that, in that I've coached enough people and seen people do it the wrong way enough to know that it never works out. A showing agent or a relationship with maybe somebody in the office, that you make an agreement per transaction that, hey, I'm swamped right now. Can you take these 2 buyers and we're going to split those 50-50, and you get a written agreement that just says that's how we're going to do it for those transactions. That's not a buyer's agent, guys. That is an agent in the office that's helping you, that you're using kind of as a show agent. But I'm sure they don't want to be called that either if they're just, sharing a lead with you.
Well, absolutely, and we're going to dive more into that when we get to the MREA organizational model. But something that you kind of touched on, that I think another mistake that people make when we're looking at pages 161, 162, and 163, hiring talent, is that I think a lot of people don't want to commit to the hiring process. And what will happen is a friend of yours will reach out and say, oh yeah, well, I actually know a friend of mine that actually graduated college. They'd be perfect for the role. You end up meeting with the person like, yeah, well, you take the easy way out and say, yeah, they seem like they check off some of the boxes.
Yeah.
You're not really diving deep. And really, when they're talking about talent on page 161, they're saying talent pushes to get answers. Non-talent will have to be pushed to want the answers. Talent shares your goals and fulfills your needs as a natural byproduct of fulfilling their own. And that's really where the motivational interview comes in. Non-talent doesn't fulfill your needs. Talent knows what it wants or is actively searching to know. Talent pushes you constantly. And that's a big one. If your talent and your people around you aren't pushing you to be the best that you can be, then you're not going to reach the heights that you want to hit. And I think, Mary Beth, when we're looking at page 162 and 163, which is where I want you to kind of dive in for a second, is I think one place where people get a little hung up is like, oh, well, talented people are going to cost a lot of money. And because they're talented and they're going to command the respect and a salary that to talk about that really.
First of all, there's 3 levels. There's 3 levels that you have potential talent.
Yep.
You have emerging talent.
Yep.
You have proven talent.
Yep.
And even at proven talent, you still have room to grow. And there's still the next journey of the proven talent. However, for the role that you're hiring to, either you see something in somebody, you've gone through this process, you've let them take assessments, you've done some interviews, and you see in them that they have the potential, because maybe the last job they did have the skill set to do the job that you're asking them to do. You like what their trajectory is, you like their loyalty, their motivation. So that's the potential talent. Emerging talent, and you will pay the least amount of money for potential talent. You will also have the biggest impact on potential talent. If you are not a great leader, you will not hire potential talent because you won't even know how to lead them out of potential to emerging.
Yep.
If you have stopped growing and you are not talent, you will probably go to the emerging one to say that's the easier way out. I can't afford the proven talent, but I'd rather somebody who knows what they're doing because I don't know it right now.
Exactly.
Okay. And I would challenge you to see how to hone in on your leadership skills and figure out what you need so that you can look at all options. Emerging talent is somebody who has done it. They haven't had extreme success in it. However, you won't have to teach them the basics of the job.
Yep.
They will have the foundational pieces of the job, and now you will just coach them up to the next level. And so I see that a lot in our world, that there may be people that weren't in the right environment. They weren't pushed. The law of the lid, which is a John Maxwell law, a leadership law, is you can only grow to where you can see inside your organization. So if the top producer in your office does 20 transactions, you're thinking 20 transactions is a big producer.
Mm-hmm.
In our world, let's say, for example, our top producer sells 250 homes a year. And so for our brand new agent that comes in, that is the lid. That is where they believe they could take their business to. If Bill and Ron can,
Yep.
you know, if Teresa can do 40 million, then,
Yep.
and then if you're in an environment where that is not the case, and it's whatever the lid is, that's where you're going to be able to see. And so proven talent, though, on the other hand, is somebody's done it, somebody's done the job well, and you're going to be willing to pay that person definitely way more than the other two. And you're going to give them the freedom to run with it, and they are a self-managed person.
Yeah.
And so if we
yeah, no, and really to that point, I think that's where you want to hire the people with the track record, the proven talent, because ultimately, you know, where people get concerned with the cost of a bad hire is that you're going through the process, you know, 2 to 3 months to hire somebody, you're training somebody to get them set up. And then if it's a bad hire and it doesn't work out, you've wasted 5 months of your time, and then you're back at square one and your business is no further along.
Well, it's actually worse than that, Matt.
Yeah.
You've taken your eye off the ball because you put the person in place. Yes, to your point that you spent all that time. Yes, you would have spent all that time in a great hire also. Yep. You spent all that time identifying the candidate, doing the interviews. Mm-hmm. Then you spent the time hiring the person, you know, going through your agreement with them, and you better have an agreement. And then you went through the time of training the person. So for the first 30 days, you better be apt to train that person. And you have to, once again, call us if you need us, but you have to know what that 30, 60, 90-day plan looks like with this new hire. Yep. You're going to do that regardless whether it's good or bad. So if you look at that way, you are definitely going to take your eye off the ball for a good 30 days, 30 to 60 to 90 days, depending on how long it took you to find that person, and then the first 30 days. Yep. When you do that, that means your focus is not on going to get listings, going to close buyers. So you ultimately hurt yourself in the short term, knowing that with a great hire, that person should be basically paying for themselves in the first 90 days. And now beyond that, you're going to grow in your income. Yep. A bad hire definitely takes that long to set them up. So you lose that time, you lose the focus, you lose the future business, because now you're not getting up and running on day 30 after they're in their 60, 90. And now you're doing this all over again. And now you killed a year. Yep. I guarantee you will have a very tough year coming out of that. Plus there's a mental thing that happens as well, because we're just that way, and it's okay. Well, we make
it with agents where that happens. You know.
Yeah. So, you know, my concern is, yes, and then there's times where you go through the process and it doesn't work out in the long run anyway. So you have to be flexible, and so for that, I want to say you're always looking for talent.
Yeah.
You know, Mark King was talking about it the other day about Gary Keller saying he is always looking for talent. Good market, bad market. We have enough talent. We don't have enough talent. Bench them. Yep. See if they're there when you have an opening.
Well, you can never have enough talent. And I think really the last part of this chapter, page 166, 167, and 168, is really about, once you hire somebody, the importance of training and consulting with them and really setting them up for success. The two big differences, and I'm not going to read through each one of these just for time purposes, but on page 166, there's the 10 principles for empowering people. So it's really talking about making sure you're setting standards of excellence and guidelines for the people you hire, making sure it's clear on the responsibilities, make sure you trust them, because one of the things that's really big on these couple pages is you don't want to micromanage them. They use the word micromanage a couple times. You don't want to hover over them or just have them shadow you, like really set them up for success.
Well, there's that, and then there's the other, which I always love, and I have it highlighted here, is the seagull management.
Yep.
Where you swoop in, you poop all over the place, make a mess of everything, and then you swoop out and leave everybody to clean up the mess. And that is just you feel like that assistant is busy because they're just cleaning up your mess all day.
Yeah.
When you're just making a mess to make them busy because you don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So, they do very little training or none at all, and then they just swoop in, make a lot of noise, dump on people, and fly off.
Yeah.
Is it any wonder that they can't keep talent? So I pray that that is not you, and though I have been there, and many of us have failed forward on that.
Absolutely, and I think towards the end on page 169, basically to sum up what we've talked about, he writes, as an ongoing reminder, think of your organizational model this way: talent to shine, systems to define, train and consult to refine. So I think that's a great way to really kind of sum up today's chapter. So tomorrow is Wednesday, so we do have the call on Wednesday. Thursday we won't because it's red day here and we don't have that on the calendar. But tomorrow at 11 a.m. We'll now be shifting towards the millionaire real estate agent and how their economic model is set up. And then into next week, we'll be looking at how the millionaire real estate agent lead generation model, budget model, and organization model is set up. So tomorrow we're going to shift back to the economic model and look at how that is set up for the millionaire real estate agent.
Awesome. That's great.
And we will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, Mary Beth.